Commandment 6, Part 1, Intro/What is it? Exodus chapter 20, verse 13 says, "Thou shalt not kill." This commandment is phrased to emphasize the explicit prohibition against taking life. By analyzing just these four simple words of this verse, we gain insight into its meaning. It begins with thou, or in other translations, you. This term clearly indicates who is required to adhere to this law. If we are subject to these sets of laws, this verse is specifically directed towards us. The phrase shall not serves as an imperative, indicating that compliance is mandatory rather than merely recommended. The use of these words underscored the notion that this directive is a divine mandate, which is non-negotiable, absolute, and unchanging. The final word in this verse is kill. According to Webster's dictionary, the term kill is defined as to deprive of life, cause the death of, or even to put an end to. Understanding this definition is essential to comprehending the commandment and how to adhere to it. The sixth command refers to the taking of human life. However, there are some who will try and twist this commandment into killing anything, animals included on this list. If that was the case, it would be supporting and requiring a vegetarian type of diet. However, whenever we begin to really look into the Old Testament, it becomes really hard to support this position, because this commandment would have been constantly violated and in conflict with many other laws. Verses like Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 through 3, we are told that man is supposed to be over all the animals of this earth. It doesn't mean that we are just over them, but in the third verse here, it specifically talks about how man would take animals as a food source. Now, if you were to be vegetarian, I think that is totally fine, but it is something that is not commanded by the Old Testament law or by any other commandments found in the Bible. The sixth commandment, because of its simple wording, is a target of skeptics who want to twist its meaning to ridiculous kinds of levels, suggesting that if we were to kill something, even like a mosquito, cockroach, ant, or anything else along those lines, that it would be breaking of this law. So when this verse forbids killing, the kind of killing must be defined and limited to the taking of human life and not of animal lives. Whenever we talk a lot about this topic, a word that comes to mind is the word murder. The definition of this word here is the premeditated killing of one human being or another. Exodus chapter 21 verse 14 talks about killing another person in a premeditated type of murder whenever we wait for our neighbor to slay them. The scene described here is an obvious application to the sixth commandment found in the verse is killing someone that is premeditated and planned. Comparing the two words, killing and murder, murder is the premeditated taking of a life, and then killing is more of the general taking of a life. Yet it is still important for us to look into other verses that we can find in the Bible to help define this topic even more. In Numbers chapter 35, verses 16 through 17, in which it says, "If he strikes him with an instrument of iron so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. And if he strikes him by throwing a stone, with which he might die, and if he dies, he is a murderer, and the murderer shall surely be put to death." If we were to read the next verse here, the 18th verse, it would repeat this same theme, only with the example of a hand weapon of wood. However, the important thing to take out is the exact wording of these verses. The 16th verse talks about, "so that he dies." And whenever we look into the 17th verse, it says, "with which he might die, and if he dies." The important thing to look at in these verses is this wording of "if he dies." The reason it is so important wording here to look at is because of the conditional if. What this implies and means is that this situation, that there is no intention of murdering someone, just harm. Whenever we look into the words that come after this phrase, we see, "and he die." This is the definition of accidental murder here. However, we can see God values all human life by saying that it is considered as murder, and that in these verses that he shall surely be put to death. It is not the intention of harm that makes it murder or intent to kill or not. God is wanting us to know that he values all human life because we are created in his image, found over in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27.